Minneapolis City.
Post goals! What about that? What about
The People's Pitch Podcast, brought to you by Summit Brewing Company.
Hello again, faithful listeners. This is the People's Pitch Podcast, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City Soccer Club. I am your gracious host, John, and alongside me is the number 8 to my number 6, Mr. Nathan Morales. Nate, this is the sad part of the year for us. We put a bow on the packed summer that we had of soccer with City. Are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I was in a little bit of a sad withdrawal last week, but there's plenty of soccer to watch, plenty of things to keep my mind off what we're missing as far as the NPSL playoffs. So I have become one with a state of calm.
So did you get my reference this week in the intro?
Yeah, those are position numbers.
Yes, good. So it's year 2 of doing the podcast, and you have clearly learned.
Yep.
Good to know. Good to know it didn't fall on deaf ears.
Nope, I got it. I'm good.
So we are almost out of time on the soccer parking meter. Before we do run out of time, we have some things to talk about, folks. Some final things to cover. We'll be talking about our final match recap of our game against Med City. We'll take a quick look at the NPSL Midwest playoffs, and then we'll end the year with our year-end recap. We'll have some organizational thoughts along the lines of what we had last year. We'll do our big wins, our teachable moments, some next steps, and then we'll do our review of the players and our unofficial awards. So we'll each have our individual thoughts and a couple major player awards that are very much so unofficial. And let's just get right after it. It's going to be a long show, so might as well start right away. What do you think?
I heard that.
All right, so the final match saw us go down to Rochester quite a few weeks ago. 3 weeks, I believe. 3 weeks ago.
Already?
Maybe 4
Damn.
weeks ago. Already? I know, right? To see us take on the naughty nurses of
Son,
the
it was just 11 days back.
What's that?
That was less than 2 weeks ago.
Really? It seems
Yeah.
like a month ago.
I know.
Man.
I just
Wow.
looked at the calendar like, no way it was that long ago.
Anyways, we go down to Rochester to take on Med City. So we went into this last game of the year with pride on the line and a very slim chance at making the playoffs. So what we needed to happen was we needed the Twin Stars, who totally shit all over us twice, essentially knocking us out of the playoffs, as they needed to go and beat Dakota. All they had to do was beat Dakota, and they ended up losing 5-3.
Yep.
So eat a bag of shit. Thanks a lot. So I ended up traveling down with the team and coaching with William, as Adam had some kind of travel plans that we knew about. So I had a little bit more of my hands in this one than I have in the previous games. But your starters for the match are as such. We had Matt Elder in goal, Ao, Trey, Max, and Ba across the back line. Martin and Wexler in the center midfield, with Goose and Wexler flanking them on the wings. Goose and Will Kidd flanking them on the wings, with Miles and Timmy as our forward options. And then guys coming off the bench were AJ, Hoof, Nick Hines, Connor, Steve, and Charlie. So the first thing to note is there was a bit of a formation change. So what we did was we moved away from our favored, for most of the season, or all of the season, 4-3-3 into a 4-2-3-1. And the reasoning behind that was we put player pairings together with guys we knew they were going to be successful. So when you look at our starters, you look at Ba in the back line at left back. We saw him play a little bit in the center midfield throughout the year, but I thought that, and I still think that his best position for us is at left back. And then you also see the addition of Martin and Wexler as our 2 starting center midfielders, and then Miles in the number 10 role in behind Timmy. So that formation in particular equalizes strong wing play, which is what we knew Med City had, with the likes of Turnbull and the guys that were, kind of coming at us in the first matchup that we had at home. So, like I mentioned too, that we partnered Miles in the attack with Timmy, and that partnership was one where Miles had a little bit more freedom and more opportunity on the ball instead of just making straight runs. To be able to drop back in, and then he had a strike partner who does what? He does the one thing Miles wants, and that's give Miles the ball. And Timmy doesn't want the ball. Timmy wants to get it and give it back to someone. So, and we saw their pairing, in the Open Cup run, and we saw it in training that they just have a good partnership. So we put them together. Mm-hmm. So, unbeknown to them, they a little bit of before pregame drama. Unbeknown to Med City, they actually had a player on yellow card suspension who was listed as a starter. So we look at those suspension lists to make sure we have no one that's suspended because it's an automatic forfeiture. So the drama came in that we told them that they had this guy who was ineligible, and we told the referees, and we didn't want it to be like you can't play with that guy, he's illegal. It was more so us bringing it to the attention that if they were to win,
so this guy, even if he played and even if they won because he played, they would have forfeited the game.
Right. So we brought it to their attention, not like a nana nana boo boo type situation. It was more of like if you beat us and have this false sense of making the playoffs, you're gonna find out later anyways. So. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't gamesmanship. It was totally an honest thing. So the referees had to call the league, and we're getting ready to kick off, and the guy's still in the huddle, and we're like and he's on the field. He's been announced, and I'm just like, we told him, so
all right,
is what it is. So anyways, they ended up pulling the guy off the field and putting on a sub, and the guy didn't play, and all was fine.
Oh, okay.
But the first half started with us imposing really great possession on Med City, whom I thought would have come out on fire like they did last time against us. But they looked a shell of themselves, and we had talked about it earlier a couple weeks back that they were just dropping games, and like they should have locked the league up weeks ago before this game, and they didn't. And we started to see that there was just no passion, and they just didn't look like they wanted to really play together anymore.
That's really weird. I mean, I think, especially considering the types of games that they were playing and who they were playing against, like, it would have just taken one more victory and they were in.
Right, exactly. So our gamble with our formation change really did pay off, Nate, as their wing play was totally suffocated. And what that did was, with their wingers playing so wide and so high, that there were gaps in behind them that allowed Goose and Will to go at defenders pretty much with the ball all half. So we created quite a few chances from the wing play, which meanwhile equalizing and having numbers back to be able to suffocate what they do best. And it really did work for us. So, in fact, our goal came from Goose drifting inside after an overlapping run by Miles that took his flank away, sending him to kind of drift into the middle. And then Miles kind of overcooked a cross that came across, bypassed the middle into the other wing, where Will Kidd was able to collect the ball, beat his man, and then slotted a ball to Goose, who just ripped a screamer one time into the upper corner, and then we're up 1-0. So it's like dream start, right? Like it felt like Sioux Falls all over again, where we get into the game, we have a plan, and then we just totally attack at it and we score first. So that we did. Really nothing changed, going into halftime. It was more of just us having possession of the ball. Wexler and Martin playing in the middle of the field together again looked very dangerous. The decision to play Miles in the 10 paid off. Everything was paying off. All aces. So the only thing that really changed at halftime was both Goose and Will pulled me aside on separate occasions saying that they were totally running out of gas. And that was because all they were doing was running at players. They didn't really even have to come back on defense because they were just constantly in a position where they could get the ball and attack. And it's funny to see both those guys say, like, I have no more energy left, because they're very, very much so energy players. But we got to the point where we said we're gonna throw 10 to 15 really hard minutes at Med City in the beginning of the second half and impose our plan of attack on them. And then we're going to start thinking about, if we don't get another goal, really trying to kill this one out.
Yeah.
So, Nate, you watched. What did you think from things afar?
I think Yeah, the first thing I noticed on the stream was definitely like, oh, Miles is in your attacking midfield role instead of always trying to make these runs as a striker. And that was nice to be able to get him involved in the play for a bigger chunk of the field. It made him a little more dangerous that he was able to. You never knew if he was gonna dish it to someone or if he was gonna try to do something with it. And I liked that. I think that the formation totally utilized our strengths. Like, finally, it looked like, and it sucks that it was in the last game of the season, but I think like you played guys where they were supposed to be played, and it was almost rewarding guys that were playing hard throughout the season. Like, we leaned on some underused players, and they looked pretty good. Like, I thought Wexler looked really good, and Wexler had been looking good as a late sub in the last 2 or 3 games of the season. So I was kind of frustrated that was kind of his, all of a sudden, his lot on the team. But to see him play as well as he did for most of that game, I was really happy about that. I also loved that Abdallah Ba was back to his left back position. I thought it was interesting to put him at center mid against Eris, but like a fun experiment. And then all of a sudden, as the season went on, that experiment was a reality. And it's just like, why play him out of position if not just to like accommodate his ego and make him feel better that he's getting minutes when he could have, I get that you were trying to get as many guys on the field as possible that have some talent, but like, it's all right to say, dude, Charlie is doing great, or Hoof is doing great, or Nick Hines is doing great at left back, so we're going to sit you down for this game, or we're going to bring you in late, or whatever. Like, finally, they didn't bend it to the ego, and they played him where he should have been played, and he locked Turnbull down, and I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, he did. And like I said before, the ability for us to make that change really, from the get-go, just turned off their ability to attack us.
The dude last year was, what, a 6-time player of the week at his
right.
position?
Right.
So, like, it's weird that he didn't get played as much as he probably should have at left back this year. But the real weird thing is trying to slam him in when he was available at a totally different position. Like, it's one thing to say, you're just not good enough at your position, so we'll bench you compared to this other guy. But then to try to, like, work him in out of position just felt strange to me.
Right. So, like I mentioned before, we paired guys together. I mean, outside of Engel playing in the back line and having Max back there, we pretty much had our starting defense from last year.
Yeah.
So, and it worked. Interesting.
Yeah, weird. It's like they knew how to play together.
Right. So, like I mentioned, we had a plan of attack for 15 minutes of solid pressure, and then we started to ease back and defend with purpose to kind of kill the game off and kind of do a little bit of time wasting by getting all of our subs on, and they all had a clear plan of, when you go in, this is the minute in the second half you're going to go in. Be prepared. This is your job, and everyone did their job.
Yeah.
So nothing really threatening came from them, besides a late deep free kick that forced Elder into his only really good save of the day, and everyone got their jobs done. We went home, knocked them out of the playoffs, and really did our jobs. And I thought the best part was we probably had about 15 to 20 traveling citizens. And instead of them singing "When the Crow Shit on Your Car," it was "When the Crow Shit on Your Day." So they ended their season on a low note. Nothing really for us to play except for, coming down there and doing our job and hope. If the Twin Stars would have just done their freaking job, everything would have aligned. But it didn't, and we hold our heads high that we finished the season strong with that game. So.
Yeah, I mean, the NPSL North was a crazy place this year. I think you can say that if anyone had done their job at any point, depending on, from team to team, the playoff race would have been a totally different animal. Whether it's us, we shouldn't have lost 2 games against the Twin Stars. If we just won one of them, we would have been in the playoffs, versus if the Twin Stars won against Dakota, the Med City would have been in the playoffs. It was just kind of a crazy scenario. So although we took a backhand from the soccer gods and we did not make the playoffs, our division, the NPSL North or the NPSL Midwest, has been playing and will continue. And they will continue to rep the North in the playoffs. Of course, Dakota Fusion was the first team to play, and they traveled 20 some hours in their sweet bus from Fargo to Detroit, and they went all that way just to get the shit kicked out of them by Detroit City 5-1. John, I did not watch that match, but you did. I would have liked to see Detroit City play. I'm definitely going to watch their next one. I would like to know what your thoughts were on this game.
Nate, it was just a total mind bender for me, and in drowning my sorrows in a bucket of whiskey, watching that game. Just like, first off, I had really high hopes that the Fusion would put up at least a good fight, but as the scoreline dictates, that really wasn't the case. So it makes an observer such as myself wonder what could have been if it were us and not them repping the North in this match. And again, they have quality players, but I really thought they were going to at least game plan for this a little bit instead of trying to go back to the well.
Well, and Detroit City is one of the more visible teams in the NPSL, so it's not like film on them was hard to come by.
Right. Right. So, speaking of that, the game kind of started out much like you would think from a Detroit City game. They had around 6,000 fans. The atmosphere was just raucous. Really cool to watch. Then the whistle blew, and it was much of like what you would have seen from one of our games in our division. And I'll let you guess who I'm really specifically talking about here. One team went out and lumped the ball, and then lumped the ball and ball after ball forward. And one team sat deep, collected those long balls, and then worked a possession style that carved up the defense. So who do you think I'm talking about in that instance?
Well, I mean, that sounds like Fusion's game plan is just to drop long ball after long ball.
Right. So Detroit sat back. They clearly did their homework. They sat back, took the ball away, and then just started the attack. And it was just like clockwork over and over and over again. So, I mean, in this particular instance, however, it wasn't us. It was Detroit who played the possession, and it wasn't Dakota who was trying to do anything different. What Detroit did different than what we did against them in our first matchup, and we did a little bit in the second matchup, is they didn't lose the ball in dangerous positions when they were trying to possess.
That's helpful.
Right. And like we saw our possession style get equalized by quick counterattacks when we would lose it deep.
With dumb mistakes.
Yeah. So they didn't.
They didn't make the dumb mistakes.
Right, exactly. Then it's now time for me to eat my words. And around the 18th minute, Fusion did just that. They chased down a long ball and then quickly got men forward in the attack and were able to put a shot on target that rebounded into a crowd of people and then was slotted home for the first goal of the game. So there I was thinking, like, are you shitting me? This is happening again. Like
the shit style of soccer that we've seen all year is going to take Detroit City by surprise.
Right. And I was like, no way. But then Detroit City got back on the front foot, and the better team prevailed. Not before some of the same tactics of the hack job and long balls continued. Seeing wasted effort after wasted effort being lumped into, sometimes 6 guys back. And then we saw a guy sent off, and it was 5-1 quickly. And some guy looked like he was 40 years old, scored 2 goals, and there's a penalty kick, and it was just a fucking mess. It was that's really what it was
in the end.
Right.
I'm wondering, John, because you had asked me, and I'm not sure if you asked it on the show rhetorically, but what would happen? What would have the game been like if it was a possession style team like us against them? 2 teams that like to keep the ball on the ground. How different would the game have been?
It would have been a lot like
you said. We can only imagine.
It would have been a lot like what we saw in the PLA last year, where like every team tried to play soccer outside of Cedar Rapids, but it would have been that style of game, really hard fought, back and forth, end to end, and not end to end with the ball being the leader of the attack. More of like everyone getting numbers forward and then quickly getting back to defend. Yeah, when they lose it. So I think it would have been more of an attractive game. And that's for the general observer. I mean, I'm sure if you're a Detroit fan, you're like, "Whoa, I thought it was a great game." Yeah, you put up 5 goals on a team. Of course, you had fun. No shit. So, I mean, you can speculate what it could have been, but what it was 5-0, just drubbing. So next up for Detroit City is everyone in Minneapolis' favorite Duluth FC on Friday night this week goes up against Detroit City. The game will be televised, and I will definitely be tuning in to see if they can put up an effort against Detroit City that isn't the same bullshit that they do of, chopping away at attackers for 70 minutes and then the cards don't come out, and then you have a bunch of tired, worn out, beaten up players that concede a late goal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like I can't even be blamed for talking trash right now because that's how every one of their wins was. There was except for the convincing ones against Eris, It was the same stuff over and over. So if I were Detroit, I would do the exact same thing I did against Fusion. I would sit deep, I'd absorb that long ball, and if I get chopped down, I don't complain. I just put the ball down and I start the attack again. Because what you saw Detroit do when Fusion started hacking, there was no complaining to the ref about cards, none of that. It was they conceded a foul. It was either deep in the zone or it was out wide, and we just put the ball down and play. Mm-hmm. And that I think is something that they can expose when it comes to Duluth. But I'll be tuning in. I'm rooting for Detroit, even though the old adage that you should definitely be pulling for people in your division if it's not you. I really don't care. I think that Detroit's going to prevail and win the Midwest region.
All right, bold prediction. Hopefully we'll be able to see that come to life. And that's Friday. When you said televised, do you mean live streamed on the interwebs?
Yeah, it's televised on TV there, but it's live streamed on Fox Detroit. So you'll be able to, if you go to their website and you go into the schedule section of their website, there's a watch live under the game. So,
that's like a real broadcast, man.
Yeah. They have sideline reporters and stuff. They have so much money. It's
Holy
unbelievable.
Shit.
Well,
Sweet.
when you're the only game in town, you can afford to do that kind of stuff.
Well, may not be for Detroit, but for us, the season is over, and our guys will be shifting gears over the next month to college or life after city. But that does not mean that we have to, John. Let's recap how things went in this year here. I think the first thing we want to start on is just some general thoughts about how the organization has developed from year one to year two. And I would like to start. I think as far as I'm concerned, I think the team profile, the visibility, the way people are viewing us, I think it's generally incredible. I think the professional way that our office has carried itself over this last year has really given us so many great opportunities, not only to build the team through recruiting players even late into the year, but to just do awesome stuff like go down to Des Moines to play the Menace or get that secret friendly against Minnesota United. I think that's a pretty amazing feat for a team only in its second year that's still, by our own admission, pretty amateur. So so hopefully that kind of relationship with the local soccer community and the big money soccer clubs around here will continue. I think secondarily, I think in spite of our record this year, we're gaining fans left and right. And you know that we're something in the soccer community wants to check out when we get the likes of, Brent Coleman, obviously probably coming to see his brother, but Cody Cropper, Jeb Brovsky, Jerome Tiason, they're guys like MLS players and past NASL players are attending our games just to see what we're about, and I think that's amazing. I can't believe the word is out. I can't believe we're something that an MLS player would spend his Friday night off coming to see. Could you could you have predicted that?
I mean, yeah, I could have, and I think that I'll get into it a little bit, and echo some of your statements in a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I think it is something that we can expect because we put on a good show, right? And like you said, despite the outcomes of some of those games, it was awesome it's an awesome atmosphere, and if you're a fan of soccer, whether it be at any level, like youth all the way up to MLS or international. It's fun to watch live soccer. And if you're into that sort of thing, we're the next best thing, and you should definitely come out and check it out.
And then finally, as my other organizational thought centers around, I don't know if it's the coaching as the general theme, but it's going to be a little more on the critical side. Nothing against our coaches this year. I think that they, first of all, far and away outperformed last year's coaching staff, even though some of them were returning. I think one of the things that improved this year was definitely the on-field and team organization. You weren't getting 10 guys milling around a parking lot hoping that Sam Forsgren's going to get off a plane and make it to the game. You didn't get miscommunication and personal promises and other weird things from coaching members. The team in general just felt like it was better run from start to finish, from practice to game time, and I really think that showed on the field. However, I think there were a few things that the coaches could have improved on. And what's being a fan of the team if you can't be a little critical once in a while? I think first of all, our flexibility this year was to our detriment. We did not the coaching staff was not very flexible as far as who they put on the field, what they put on the field, and how they approached games. In our league, I get that sometimes it's a little hard to game plan. You don't get the scouts to the games that you might want. You don't get the streaming from some places, especially like Sioux Falls and Dakota and things like that. But still, you got to be able to make in-game adjustments, and you have to be able to make personnel adjustments based on performance and not based on, I guess, optics. And I think that goes to my next point, that there was potentially an ego management issue on this team that on some, I'm not gonna get too specific, but if you were at games and if you saw some players' performances, you wondered, like, are they only out there because of the hype surrounding them going into the year, or because they started the season strong? There was not to say that I wanted guys on a super short leash, but I think that adjustments in game could have been made that usually were not, and I think it hurt us in a number of our losses. But I think all in all, this coaching staff was much improved from last year, and the product on the field was definitely indicative of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's new sheriffs in town. They go about things differently, and I don't disagree with what you said. And you said this is a platform for constructive criticism. But yeah, it's a lot goes into it, and I know firsthand because I was involved in a lot of it, and it's not an easy job to coach this team, specifically because you're asking these coaches to, one, do it for free, and two, invest a ton of time. So yeah, when it comes to the organizational stuff, I agree with you that we really put our hard hats on and went to work. And the in-game stuff and the ego management stuff it's all stuff that we can fix, right? And that's the great part about it is it's a constructive comment, but it's something that we can definitely fix. But I think as far as my things go, by and large, I'm going to probably echo some of the things that you had. I have a couple different things in here, but in large, you look at our third place finish in the division as a total failure. And yes, it may be, but there were plenty of things that we saw that were encouraging. And you mentioned it, but I think the awareness is growing. Attendance is up, including, the game that we went up against, Minnesota United versus Portland Timbers at home. We drew, a couple hundred people, and you'd think like immediately that a lot of our fans are crossover, right? And they chose us instead of that game. Mm-hmm. The merchandise is completely sold out. Like, we have nothing left. So it's almost like, wow, okay, great. So people like our product and they like our merchandise, and I'm starting to see it around town, and I'm also starting to see more and more people wanting to be part of what we have, and it's a huge win for us, I think, because we maybe have been around with our Stegman's organization for almost a decade now, but City is only 2 years old, and to have the groundswell that's happening and it happened towards the end of the year, which sucks that it wasn't at the beginning of the year. But it's there, and it means that we've done a really good job as an organization to get the word out there. And despite the losses, players are interested in being part of us. We're getting tons of inquiries about when trials are happening for next season. Without going into names, players from other teams are coming to us and saying, like, although maybe we beat you last year or this year, you know, you play better soccer, you're better, the organization is run better, you know, I want to be part of it. How do I get in the mix?
You've told me about that. Like, that's got to be kind of trippy when you're on our bench and after some handshakes and some pats on the back, some of their players will kind of sneak their way over and ask about how they can join our team next year. Like, that's gotta be pretty fucked up.
Or getting like guys sliding into my DMs on Twitter asking about things. You know, it's like, but for the record, the season's over and we can talk about it a little bit now. But there was never a recruiting process like that in play where I'm talking to these players behind their organization's back. You know, like, even the people that did come to me, I respectfully thank them for their interest and that I wouldn't be getting back to them until after the season was over.
Yeah.
Because it's just not how we do things. But it is encouraging that players want to be part of what we have. And I think too, like, younger players. So the kids from MTA and Shattuck that once the DA was over were coming to us about, can they come to training? And as we know players are going to age out, we have this younger group, the next generation, coming to us instead of us having to recruit them like we did in the first year or two, which I think is great. So we're 1 year smarter, and we're poised to make like another jump in the right direction next year, and maybe end up in the black this year and make some money, which would be great, right?
Yeah, totally.
Got to keep the lights on.
But John, that is not to say that we didn't have some big wins this year, and I'm not necessarily talking about just on the field in specific games. I think in general the organization took a lot of big steps forward. As a team, I would say the team defense was a huge win for Minneapolis City this year. I think no matter who they were, who was out there, our back line was just so solid. And I get that, you also add in guys like Steve to the mix, and when you've got Dan O'Brien and guys like that who are helping on defense from the midfield, but we gave up only 16 goals against, which is the best in the NPSL North. And not only was I impressed this year with the old guard, which is of course like Old Faithful, Abdallah Ba, AO, AJ, etc., but this new blood that is coming into their own, including Hoof, who's returning, but still, with the limited playing time he got last year, this year he took huge steps forward. Nick Hines coming out of a smaller school, Charlie Adams showing up after the U.S. Open Cup, and of course Max really blended in nicely together. And I think in the end, no matter who you put out there, you were guaranteed a solid defensive showing.
You mean national championship, Nick Hines?
Yeah, right.
Small school.
Yeah, exactly. You can't underestimate those small schools,
right?
Or those players in the small schools. And I think the willingness, another thing that I thought was really positive when it came to players, is the willingness of last year's younger players to come back and continue their development. It bodes really well for the growth of the team in the future. It was something I was worried about and continue to be worried about is what happens if a guy like Goose decides he's too big for Minneapolis City, or we knew Duncan didn't come back because he wanted to focus on his D1 career. How many of those guys can we absorb, or how many changes like that can we absorb? But it's turning out that most of these guys are coming back. Goose was more than happy to come back and loves his experience here in the summer. Of course, guys like Steve will come back over and over again. Even like Samuel, who came back late, ends up getting hurt, wanted to return from injury early to keep playing for us because he likes it so much. And that's something that I think reflects really well on you as a sporting director, but also on the coaching staff and on the fans for keeping these guys excited about playing for Minneapolis City.
I mean, why would you not want to play in front of like a couple hundred fans instead of like we'd go to these away games and there's like 40 people?
Yeah, it's all parents.
Yeah,
So
I mean, they don't sing songs about you.
No. So I think it's great. Like wherever they are in their college careers, these kids see City as a really good option. And I hope that kids from around the state take notice and continue to see us as such. And I think that also played out in the willingness of kids to join us even like late in the season. We had Bai join us for a couple of games before he was out with injury. We had Brian Lopez. We had Bernabo. They all came back, and we have they all came in late, and we have no shortage of talent, like you mentioned, continually looking to join up at a moment's notice. Like, moving forward, I think it's just a matter of how well can the coaching staff manage that talent influx and put together a successful roster, not just made up of the best players that we have at the position, but like you said, and like worked really well against Mid-City, players that work well together. And finally, I think a big improvement this year, the new field and this growing fan base was such an improvement over last year. I love it. And then when you add in the streaming improvement, this much better video quality that we have, we're really able to get our games out to so many more people. And I love it. You and I have been up in the booth when we've had guys, when the video guys are talking to people in England and answering their questions over the video, over the streaming chat. We're helping them with that. It's just so cool, the number of people, not only around Minnesota, but around the country and around the world that we're able to engage through these improved circumstances.
Dude, just year two, adding on. I kind of split my things into kind of off the field and on the field. So I think maybe go with off the field first. We saw an increase in improvement with our involvement in the community this year, and we know that's one of our focus points. Is to get out there in the community. We had players that were at YMCA and at Como Park camps all summer. We continued to do our pregame clinics, and then we all of us that were involved at going to Pride Fest had just a great time. We walked in the Twin Cities St. Patrick's Day parade. Those type of things are great. And I thought that we, hats off to everyone involved in there. I know Sarah puts in a lot of good work that kind of goes to a little bit of a blind eye for the folks who don't know that she's involved in getting a lot of that stuff off the ground, that she and the group that put that together really did a great job of it. So definitely hats off there. And I thought the fans, they were just fantastic and just super weird as ever this year. The citizens alone, just they grew from just a band of misfits to a larger band of misfits, which was awesome. Their songs got sharper. I think the shorter distance for away matches made it real possible for them to travel, and travel they did. Like I mentioned, there's about 15 of them that came down to the game in Rochester, and they brought numbers down to Rochester that they would have had at a home game last year. And I think the referrals were apparent. And what I mean there is this season, it wasn't just us as an organization that were trying to bring people in. This time it was like the interns were bringing people in. The players had, they get 2 complimentary tickets per game, but they were bringing like 4 and 5 people to the games. Their friends were coming out, extended family members, teammates. And then the supporters were bringing people in, and saying like, hey, you got to check this out. Like, you know why I can't hang out with you on some Saturdays in this short time period? It's because of this. You should come check it out. And I thought overall it was just extremely fantastic. And we have just a lot of good momentum from the off the field stuff that were big wins for us that we can continue to make into even bigger wins next year. As far as on the field goes, you mentioned it earlier on, but playing an MLS team, not many people at our level are even able to do something like that. You see that, the Chattanoogas and the Atlantas of the world playing against some MLS teams in the preseason, but we were able to do it and not make it a spectacle. We were able to use it for what it truly should be, as a learning experience for our players to go up against pros. And yeah, it would have been great to sell tickets to a game like that and get some of that sweet MLS money rolling down into our bank account. But again, that wasn't the focus. It was really something great that we did, and we hope to continue to do that, and maybe even more next year. Our annual trip to Des Moines, you also mentioned that. It was totally great. This year we decided to take a younger group, and they played decent, and we learned a lot about those kids, and you mentioned a lot of them when you were talking about the wins of having this influx of youth. You saw the partnership of Hoof and and Max in the middle together, and what that can bring you against top level talent, and just how much they've grown. Even Hoof being here for 2 years, but Max only being here 1 year, just how much both of them have grown as players within our environment. And then the final win against Med City. We knew before the game the only thing to play for was really pride and to be a spoiler, but the guys banded together and fought for respect in that last game, and it was really a chance for us to go from the top 3 to the bottom half of the table, which would have been even more catastrophic in people's eyes than it actually was at the end of the day. But I think that really shows that these guys really do want to play for each other, and that's an awesome thing.
Yeah. And, but it's not to say that everything was positive. I think we like to say there were, of course, some teachable moments throughout the season, and we did have a few. And my first teachable moment, John, really encompassed the entire season, and that is that we need to figure out how to get up for games at home. Like, our home record was basically 500. We were at 3 wins, 3 losses, and a draw, and that's just not how you win your league.
Right. You win at home, and you try to steal points on the road. That's how you become the leader at the table.
And the weird thing is that including games in town, like at VSLT, which is right down 94, and at Twin Stars, which is out in Minnetonka. So we're talking like in St. Paul and in a suburb of Minneapolis for those listeners who don't live around here. Our record was just flat out awful when our guys had to come from work to the stadium. Like, it's something that I had thought of throughout the season, and then today I looked it up and crunched the numbers, as it were. And in games that were played on Wednesday or Friday that were not against teams named Eris, we were 1-5, John.
Wow.
Like, that's really weird, right? Like, both Twin Stars games, which are season lows in my mind, fall into that category. That is just miserable to say that guys, can't come from work or can't come from whatever they're doing throughout the day and show up to a Friday or a Wednesday night game. Whereas when you're talking about Saturday games, our away record was much better. And I think that that's because the guys had time to bond and to focus on the upcoming game, not struggle with traffic, toss a kid on and hit warm-ups late and try to jump into a game. Like, if we played on Saturday, we were 5-1. And it was reverse for the Wednesday and Friday games. Really, really strange to me, and I'm wondering how much of that was the ability to focus on the game and to get ready for it versus just showing up and playing. So I don't know what the solution is, but I think it was a problem. I think it was a problem we had all season.
Yeah, definitely something that we can work on from a scheduling standpoint next year. I'm glad you did crunch those numbers because I would never have thought of that.
Yeah, and of course some of it is the roster and who shows up and who can't make it and how they play together, but at face value, it's just very strange that we did so much better, even on the road to Dakota, on the road to Sioux Falls. Like, we on the road to Med City, right? Hours of driving, and we do way better than when it's a 20-minute away game. Very strange to me.
Right.
Further, I think we need to make better pre- and in-game adjustments. I talked about this a little bit before with the flexibility. This year's coaching staff much better at bringing the team together, keeping the continuity, and building up certain aspects of that team. But it wasn't really until late in the season that they showed a willingness to make those in-game adjustments or mix up the roster to reflect effort and results rather than maybe some guys' expectations. So I'd like to see that improve next year, of course. And finally, I think we know. Finally, I think we know that whether we're on the field or on Twitter, that Minneapolis City has a target on our backs. I think that the way we've positioned ourselves leading into the season and that the degree that we had our shit together made us the team to beat. Not only that, but we bragged about it consistently leading up to the season, how great our players were going to be. And we were just not ready for teams to come up and play turned up to 11. So maybe next year we will be. How about you, John? What were your teachable moments for the year?
I think the one is stay healthy.
We had a lot of injuries.
We had, even if you look at, I'll just run down our injury list throughout the season. We had Samuel, we had Brandon Bai, we had Miles, we had Engel, we had Dan O'Brien, we had Coleman, and I'm sure I'm missing even more.
Well, Peter missed a couple games.
Peter, yep.
Right.
So it's you can't plan for being healthy. You can't be like, all right, well, everyone's just gonna be healthy this year. Those injuries happen, but it was definitely a teachable moment that like we have to figure out when we build a roster that is going to be a thing. And I don't think I thought of that as much as I should have when I did put the roster together this year. That if we do have players go down, how we're able to put the pieces together and not falter. The next one, you mentioned it, win at home. Like, God damn it. why can't we win at home? I don't think I really need to belabor about that one. You did a good job of going to that. But we need to figure out how not to lose against inferior opponents. So we know what to expect from our opponents now. So we need to go into matchups next season with a better plan of counterattacking kick and run soccer, I think. And perhaps that just means me getting over my hatred for ugly wins and just accepting that sometimes playing good soccer isn't the way to go.
John, sometimes you just got to get your hands dirty, man.
I know. Yeah, I just gotta roll up the sleeves and get some grease on your fingernails.
Get in there with the common people.
Right. So you mentioned it too. We need to start games faster. We time and time again were punched in the face and only elevated when we had to. And great teams at this level and really at any level start the fight with a headbutt and then just finish people off after that. Like hit them with what they're not expecting and then just continue to hammer them. And we, like I said, we saw flashes that we can do that, but we need to make that our number one goal every game.
Yeah.
And I think next year we need to worry about ourselves and not others. And I think that might have get in line with your last point. This changed as the season went on. We oftentimes were more worried about what others said and thought about us. And like I talk about the Bavarians a lot just because that's where I come from. But they do a good job of this, and they always have. And we're starting to get there, but they don't worry about anybody else. They just go and do their job. And I think that we're slowly shifting towards that because it's really the best positive outlook to go into things when you have a target on your back is to just play good soccer and the Bavarians do that and they win titles and
they're not trying to feed the trolls.
Right. And that tends to aid in the fight when you're winning and you have titles. So I think like I said, we did a really good job of that at the end of the season. And I think that it's although it came later, it's a good springboard for us into next season.
Well, John, for our next segment, speaking of springboards, I'm going to rely on your insider information here. From a front office standpoint, what are the next steps for Minneapolis City? What is this organization looking to accomplish in the off season?
So I think number one is get this group back for another year, plain and simple. That was one of our goals in year one, and it kind of came true. It continues to be a goal for us into year three. However, I think expectations need to slightly change with our players. We need to focus less on just tons of talent under our umbrella and focus a little bit more on consistency and dedication and then perfecting our system versus just having a bunch of good soccer players in, because it's such a short season that if we can create a base and then you sprinkle in some of the other talent that we know we can get, I think we're going to be more successful.
Yeah, I mean, when you get three dudes at the same position that all think that they're the best guys at the position and they've only got 11 game or however many games, 15 games to prove it, that gets a little hairy.
Right. And then, you're playing 2 games a week, so you can only train once, and how does the guy prove himself that he needs to be playing more if he's only training once, or he can't make it because of work, and a lot of factors in there. But I think that if we focus on consistency, dedication, and perfection, that's kind of going to be our moniker as we go into the next season. The next one, Nate, we need more help. So the Brain Trust can't keep being the only folks doing things. And so what I mean by that, I think we need to bring in the willing helpers. And once they're groomed, they can be here for a while and are willing to be able to handle some responsibilities. But it's not easy to find those folks, right? So, maybe it's me bringing on another soccer mind to help me with, the recruitment of players or handling some of the player management operation pieces, or it's, Dan bringing another person in with a business mind that can help out with some of the back of the house stuff, or Sarah bringing another person outside of the intern team to help her that she can give more responsibility to, or Nick bringing on someone who can help with facility management and things along those lines. But I think that we really need to emphasize getting more people in there because I think the people are out there. So I really do encourage anyone interested, if you're listening, if you're interested in being a bigger part of the club, like our doors are open. And even if you've like half-heartedly entertained the idea of like, I love this thing so much, I want to see it grow and continue to be here. Like give us a shout. We definitely can find something, to keep you in the mix at a little deeper level.
Yeah, it's always great to involve new people in the organization, and I think especially this year, the more visibility we've had and the more interest in the club that we've had, hopefully those people are out there.
Yeah, I think they are. So the door's open.
So holler at Dan, holler at John.
Yeah, the door's open. Make a sandwich.
All right, man, and it's time for our final segment of the night, and that is Player Awards. It is another year, of course, and this will mean another extremely unofficial and subjective awards segment. So, John, beyond you and me doing it for S's and G's on the podcast, will the team itself be announcing official awards this year?
We haven't talked about it, but it's something that when I was kind of putting my thoughts down together, I think we just keep it as the official unofficial podcast list.
I mean, I think when you talk about where the awards come from, it's if the awards are coming from the sporting director and one of the guys that watches every game, he can almost every game and gets to know the players at the level that we do. It's about as official as you can get without without an official sanction from Chairman Hoodeman.
I mean, I don't think you would disagree with our thoughts here. Each year we do an end of the year party for segments and we hand out awards, and we did this last year and we'll continue to do it next year. But if you're listening and you disagree with us, perhaps you finally send us an email about it, or maybe we'll start rolling these out on Twitter and get the banter going out there. But if you disagree with us, we've always said our door's open. You can contact us, so please do so.
Well, let's get started with the new guys. The Young Player of the Year award. John, we both agree on this one. Why don't you roll it out?
So I don't think it's any surprise that the person who we agreed on was Max. And really the story behind Max coming into the fold was Max was one of the players that we selected from our open tryout process. So he was not one person that we were looking at bringing in, being that he's from the MIAC, and we do a little bit of our recruiting through that circuit. And he came to us, inquired about open tryouts, and after seeing him play and kind of talking to Jeremy, who had seen Max throughout his season coaching at Bethel in the same conference, and he's like, this kid's good, and this environment might be the perfect environment to get the best things out of him. And I can't agree anymore. I mean, I've heard the style of play, and I've seen it a little bit in what McAllister kind of goes by, and it's not what we do. It's a different style of play, and I think that his ability to be coachable and to take the positives of what he's doing and make them into just routine plays was fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I think someone that impressed from his first touch almost in the VSLT game, where he was able to, or even the Minnesota the friendly against the U of M men, where he's just able to put the ball on a dime from long distance, and that's invaluable. And another thing that I really liked about having him was when you think about kind of some of the teams that are able to shut down the long ball. When you look at Duluth, when you look at Dakota Fusion, they've got some height. Med City, they've got some height on the back line, and Max was our height. Like, he was the guy that's able to get up and challenge those long balls, those over the top balls with his head, and use his body. And I really thought he was super impressive. I think I'm gonna I'm glad he plays right across the river from me at McAllister, and I'm going to try to get to a couple of his games because it's going to be cool to see him.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, and having, Will Kidd in our backyard too now.
Yeah, right, with St. Thomas, that's awesome. So,
yeah,
it's going to be a good fall for city players around the cities if you guys want to get out and see these guys in action throughout the
Yeah,
year.
I mean, they play each other twice, so you might as well get out
true.
to one of those
That
at
would be
least.
sweet.
Yeah.
So, the next award is the most improved player, and we do not have the same player getting this award, John. So why don't you go first?
Sure, I put down Goose, and a lot of people will think like, well, last year Goose was the offensive MVP, and how can he be most improved if his numbers maybe weren't there? He scored more goals this year and was with us for the whole season versus last year being kind of injury shortened.
Yep.
But as far as what we saw from Goose was his physical presence. I think a year away at college kind of turned him into a man.
Oh my gosh, he came back looking so much bigger.
Yeah, the weight room was kind to Goose, but I think his play, there's still facets of Goose's game that he and I have talked about, and the other members of the coaching staff have talked to him about that will make him an even more fantastic player. And that aside, what he came back from with being a redshirt at Indiana last year, I thought was he just grew into just a dangerous weapon. He went from being like a very talented kid to a dangerous weapon.
Yeah.
And it meant that we could now utilize him as not just the speedy winger who's just going to wear a guy down, but we could also use him and give him a little bit of a break and bring him on later in a game and completely have the ability to change it on upside down. And I think that when you look for someone from an improvement standpoint, in his position as an attacker, you have to have that. And I think he added that this year.
Yeah, I could see that. I think a lot of Goose's improvement did come in the offseason, though, which is why I did not give this award to him. It was awesome to see him, and this is strictly hearsay because there is no official video of this. But to see him burn a certain defensive back or a certain fullback for Minnesota United time and time again was pretty gratifying.
Oh man, we're not gonna name names.
No,
but man,
that guy is not playing a lot. and there's a good reason. It's because he gets burned by a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
I think
90 minutes of just pain.
I'm going to give my most improved to our man Kevin Hoof. I think, and I'll tell you the reason is because going into the season and when we had him in studio, this idea of you got hoofed to me was a little bit of a joke. Like, like it's kind of just a funny saying and it's a hilarious catchphrase. But then John, all of a sudden we start seeing him show up in games, and the things he does to shut guys down, and all of a sudden you and I look at each other and we're like, holy shit, that guy just got hoofed. Like, so it went from for me, it went from kind of like a funny catchphrase to like a thing that is a real effect that he has on players on the field. And I think that from where he was at the end of last year and the beginning of this year to how we leaned on him near the end of this year, I think Kevin Hoof is probably our most improved player.
Well, the reason why I didn't put Kevin down here, I wholeheartedly agree with you. The reason why he didn't get my vote this year is we gave it to him last year. And
I didn't. I should have checked the records.
Yep. So we gave it to him last year, and I completely agree that his growth from just the beginning of last season as a very green 18-year-old into a 19-year-old with college experience now, I think he absolutely improved. And even like you said, like in season even got even better. But I just feel like the added value that Goose put to his game from last year to this year was a different dynamic. And I think Hoof just got really, really good at the things that he was going to be good at.
I hear you. So the next award is the Breakout Player of the Year or the Surprise Player of the Year. This is something that, again, we agree on, John.
Right. My player was Charlie Adams, Chuck.
Yep.
I thought, and Charlie's just a good soccer player. And he's like, he's very much so. I was reading an article on Wayne Rooney's move to Everton, and Ronald Koeman, the coach at Everton, said I could play Wayne Rooney at 10 positions, and he in any given day he might be the best player on the field at any 10 positions. And I think that's a lot like Charlie. He's just a smart, good soccer player, and having him in our back line, like he could play center midfield for us. But having him out wide on our back line, he's smart enough to tactically take away an attacker who might be a little more athletically gifted than him.
Yep.
But he's also always willing to go into the attack. But he does it very calculated. And I thought that he played absolutely fantastic in our Open Cup game, which was our first exposure to Charlie. And I know, like professional soccer was in his mind after he got done with school, and he came from the Minnesota United system. But his willingness to put the work in and just like very much a lunch pail guy, like just get in there, do a job, and then go home, and then have a smile on your face the whole time.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Charlie brings an aspect to our game that we're sorely missing, and that is that he played in England. Something I noticed when we were in Duluth against these other guys that have played out there in England is he knows how to use his body, and sounds creepy, but use his hands to hold guys back and to shut guys down without looking like he's doing it. Sneaky ways to keep guys on their back foot, and I like that. The other guy that I want to bring up really briefly as kind of an honorable mention is Nick Hines. And you poked fun at me earlier for this. That like, oh, what makes you think a national champion player wouldn't be able to show up and contribute? But I think that while he's still a little raw, amongst the big name signings and the excitement that we had for some of the guys that were joining the team this year, Nick kind of quietly slid in, and every time he was on the field, he was contributing 110% and was very dangerous both on the attack and on defense. So I want to give Nick a tip of my cap for that.
Just sliding onto the team like a X into your DMs.
Yep. Now this is a new award that speaking of sliding in, this is a new award that I added to the sheet, probably without you knowing, but I wanted to bring up an underutilized player of the year, and I feel that Ben Wexler would have to be that guy for me. This is a guy that we saw in definitely a substitute role for a number of games this year, but when he was on the field, he was oftentimes the spark that we needed to stay in the game or to close the game out. I think you saw it in Med City when he was in the game for longer, that he was able to keep control of the game, take control of the game. I think the combination of guys like Ben Wexler and Martin Brown Jr. was something that we should have explored a lot more this season. I feel like just because, again, he's not a big dude, he's not a big name, he doesn't have, he's kind of like Charlie, a guy that was looking at professional soccer and it hasn't really happened yet. That doesn't mean that this guy should be underestimated. I think Ben Wexler is a huge part of our team and hopefully will be a huge part of our team next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ben's not only a fantastic player, he's also a fantastic teammate and organizational player to have under your umbrella. And I agree with you. There was some times where he was a little bit underutilized, but my guy was one that we saw flashes in a brief period of what he can do, in a city jersey, and there's only one person that can play this position on any given day in being a goalkeeper, and that's Big Game James.
Yeah.
When we went down to Des Moines, he started the game and he's coming off of a knee injury from last year from preseason, and never really was able to get in the mix to fight for minutes because of just his rehabilitation from his knee. But it's encouraging that we have a guy who could start in goal for any team in James as our third option. And
it's sometimes our second option.
Yeah, and sometimes our second option.
Who's got a red card that week?
Right, or our first option. And he's like Wexler. I think like this should be like underutilized awesome teammate of the year.
Yeah. Because
James came to South Dakota and played forward, so, I think that as we move into the future of City. Nothing taken away from Matt or from Peter, but James is a guy who we'd like to see, pushing for playing time, which is only going to make the other goalkeepers better, and at least just getting a shot. Right? Yeah. He it's truly underutilized. He wasn't able to really get his shot.
Yep. Next up is our offensive MVP. This kind of award speaks for itself. John, you've got a guy in mind, and it's hard to argue.
Right. I put down Miles Stockman-Willis, and I know he was injured for most of the year, and in the Open Cup he played a defensive midfield role, but we really slotted him into the attack, or the attacking third. And when he was healthy, he scored 7 goals in 6 games. Yep. And albeit there was a hat trick in there against Aries, but it's still scoring goals. And then looking at what he did against Med City, he's versatile enough to put him in a number 10 role, and he succeeds. He's just a very good forward-minded player, and that's what you need out of an offensive MVP. I just wish we would have had a whole healthy season of Miles. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those things where I remember looking back, I made the prediction that Brandon Bai joining the team would really turn the season around and add some excitement, but then Bai gets injured and Miles shows up and starts scoring, and that is really what happened. That's really the spark plug that we needed. I'm going to go on to defensive MVP here, skipping over who I had thought maybe an honorable mention to offensive would be. I think just when you crunch the numbers, I like to include games, or I like to exclude games against Eris when I think about really who performed this year. And Will and Goose both came in. Will with 4 goals against teams not named Eris. Goose with 3. Goose in the game we've talked about before, how he changes the game. Those guys would be my honorable mentions. But let's move on to defensive MVP. Again, another guy that we agree on, Trey Benhart.
Yeah, why don't you start with this one?
Yeah, I mean, Trey, so calm, so collected every
Old
time
Faithful.
he's out there. Old Faithful for sure. Like, this guy, quiet off the field, on the field, knows exactly where he needs to be, what he needs to be doing, rarely finds himself out of position, and I think he really is the glue that holds that back line together for the league best 16 goals against average.
And he scored a goal this year.
He did, off the header, and
yeah,
he
you might as
giggled
well
about it, didn't even have to jump.
You might as well just put 17 or 15 on goals against, because he equalized one out by scoring.
That's true. And then finally, team MVP, another one that we both agree on. John, take it away.
Martin Brown Jr., I don't think it's really any surprise. There was a short, brief period in there where Martin was injured, and he had the weirdness that was Liberian Soccer Federation kind of pulling him in one direction and then cutting that cord. But every time Martin's on the field, he's just a calming presence. He's a smart soccer player. He's a great teammate. He's a great guy off the field in the community for us, and I think we're just so blessed to have him in, because he's just one of the good guys. And deadly free kicks, I don't think we need to talk anymore about just that. He's just everything he does, on both sides of the ball, and just a willing competitor, and just wants to be part of soccer. He wants soccer in his life, and you can tell.
Absolutely. Martin Brown Jr. is the kind of guy that you're happy to have on your team, because he gets your players excited to play with them. He gets your fans excited to cheer for him. All in all, and then he's just as grateful and happy to be in front of 10 people as he is to be in front of 600 people.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Totally agree, Nate. So those are our awards. Nate, it's been another full season, and not to kind of get all corny and sentimental, but it has to be continued. It's been a great ride with you this year. It was just filled with highs and lows, and like last year. Tell me what your best moment of this season's of being on this show was or were.
Yeah, John. I mean, it might sound weird, but my favorite moments in the show this season were was the fun we were able to have with the players in our interviews before the season even started. Especially these in-studio moments. Guys like Timmy Wills, Big Game James, and AO were awesome to have in studio. It was great to get to know them, and they're all just hilarious guys once you get them off the field and out of their game face. But I think by far my favorite show moment was the week we had Dustin Brannon from Talisman Caps on the show. I think that was a good guy. It was such a great interview. Super interesting to hear about this guy. And we're super happy to support him in his business venture. Definitely my favorite episode this year.
So, Nate, I don't have a specific show moment this year, and I didn't actually have a show moment last year. I used our random dude trip to Madison as my moment. That was that one goes down in people's pitch lore, but I can honestly say that each night we record the show, I really look forward to it, and they're really all my favorite. We've done them remotely, in studio, done some virtual things when I'm out on a work trip or I'm doing something else or you're doing your own thing. But each time I really feel like we have a blast together, whether we're alone or we have a guest in, which is why I really like to continue doing this show.
Yeah.
And I really look forward to some of the new things that we're kind of kicking around for the off season as we move into next year.
Oh man, that's great. I agree.
Sentimental sappiness.
Always a great time. Well, once again, John, it's time to sign off, and that sucks. We would like to thank Summit Brewing Company for being with us all season. Summit has been a great sponsor, so remember to go down to your local liquor store, everyone. Hit up your bars, your restaurants, support Summit as much as they have supported Minneapolis City. We're in the off season now, so you're going to start seeing requests to renew your membership or to become a member. It's never a bad time to become a Minneapolis City member. $60 is going to get you in on that action. It includes a fancy new membership scarf. It includes a member's vote, and it earns you a seat at Soccer Valhalla. If you follow Minneapolis City on social media, you're going to know that we are out at community centers and parks helping kids of all backgrounds connect to soccer. But of course, we need the help and support of you, the people. So if you're looking to align yourself with a fine group that loves to give back, you are in luck because Minneapolis City is a 501c3 that does good on and off the pitch. Every donation is fully tax deductible, so consider giving to the club that gives back. Hey, if you disagree with our awards, if you want to add something in, if you want to reminisce about this season, you can get a hold of us. We have made it super easy. You send a note on Twitter if you want. We are at The People's Pitch. I talked to 3 guys in front of me at the Minnesota United game, the season ticket holders up there. They're going to give us a follow. Hopefully they're listening. Or you can hit us up through email at mcscpodcast@gmail.com. All questions, of course, comments, and concerns are welcome. And as always, if you have something to talk to the club about, you can hit them up at MPLS City SC. And that is all for this season, folks. We will be back soon after we hit those beaches in Mallorca on a just a show holiday. Just somehow our families have found enough money to take a trip to the Mediterranean. So
just
stay
wander
tuned
to Mallorca.
Yeah, stay tuned to Twitter with our plans. John and I are going to leave you like we always do with our house band, Go Get 'Em Tiger. This is We Live with the Pines. I have been Nate. That was John. This was a great season to be with you on, and we will hope to see you in the off season with team news, player news, new segments, and hopefully some Open Cup news. Peace out.
You got hoofed. One last.